Welcome to the Big Book Roundtable and the RICO 12 family of recovery resources targeted at people from all backgrounds, faiths, and places dealing with addictions of all varieties. RICO 12 is also a resource for the loved ones of addicts. I am Justin B., a child of an all-powerful and all-loving God and a multidisciplinary addict living in the miraculous recovery that is described in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I am grateful and blessed to be the moderator of this roundtable. I'm joined today by Nikki M. and David G. The three of us are living this miracle of recovery one day at a time. You know, we've got some great big book experience in our lives, experience, strength, and hope that we're happy to share as we go through this Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous, page by page. I'll quickly further introduce myself and then get to our panelists. I'm Justin B. Like I said, I am the steward of the RICO 12 family of recovery resources, and I'm really grateful for that. RICO 12 is currently a family of podcasts that includes the RICO 12 speaker meeting, which is our flagship. We've got RICO 12 shares. We've got Noodle It Out with Nikki M., who we're grateful to have Nikki as a panelist on this roundtable. And we've got this project, and there's more coming down the pipeline. In fact, we've recently done a Afro-Euro RICO 12 speaker meeting that comes out every 2 weeks. So we got lots on the pipeline. This is an adventure. So let's start with Nikki. Nikki, if you could quickly share a little bit about yourself, introduce yourself, and an insight in your recovery that you've had recently.
Hi, Justin, and thank you for having me and being a trusted servant of this beautiful roundtable and this fellowship. And I'm just grateful to be here with you and David today. Hi, I'm Nikki M., and I'm a intelligent agent spearhead of God's ever-advancing creation is what my big book tells me I am. And I've actually come to believe that along these years in this journey. So some insight that I've learned, well, today I've learned that what applies for you or what I teach or what I have learned applies every day to me. You know, today someone took my inventory and I'm not supposed to take inventory. So instantly I was reminded, because my beautiful magic book has become a working part of my mind, that this is my course, says page 66. Perhaps people who wrong me are spiritually sick. So I just followed the instructions, and the insight is that, you know, I don't get a day off here. I've got to apply all of these instructions every day, never perfectly, just progressing along spiritual line. This is exciting, Justin, because I'm learning every day. I'm like, I know. Don't you know who I am? I'm a spearhead. No, Nikki, you're just a child of God, learning and growing every day in the spirit of the sunlight.
Thank you, Nikki. We're happy to have you here. David, would you just take a quick minute and quickly introduce yourself and an insight in your recovery that you've had recently?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Justin. Thank you, Nikki. My name is David G., and I am an alcoholic and an addict of many sorts. I have a miraculous recovery date of August 8th, 1994 in Alcoholics Anonymous. I have a emotional recovery date in the SA program of October 1st of 2019. And I'm very grateful to be here with you guys today. Insight on some things that have happened recently in my life. We just have come back from the west part of Texas, where I did a in-group big book study and went through the first 7 chapters from Friday evening until this morning. We finished up this morning. It was a good in-person event to be with. My wife had joined me on that journey, and for the last 4 years, she has kind of backed away from Alcoholics Anonymous, some due to things that happened, during that time. But it was an awakening weekend, and she reconnected with the big book in a way that she loves. And it's just been very, very good to see people wake up to the message that's inside of the book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And it's just something I love to do, something I love to share. And it's going to be a part of me always, no matter what. As Miss Nikki said, it is my course in life. It's my first love. It always has been. It always will be. So very grateful for that. Thank you, Justin.
Thank you, David. Miracles. I love hearing the miracles of recovery that just happen, every day, one day at a time. And for those of you out in podcast land, David is driving back from West Texas right now. He'll be home soon, but we're recording while he's on the road, and that is really cool. Thanks, David, for being willing to do that. All right. So I'm going to start today. We're going to resume reading where we left off in our last episode, and we're going to be finishing up the foreword to the second edition of the Big Book of Alcoholics today. We're going to be starting on the bottom line of page XIX, which is Roman numeral 19, the very last line, and then we'll read through the end of the foreword to the second edition, and we'll comment and discuss that. There's a lot in this section. I'm excited to get into it and to get a little bit of experience, strength, and hope and learn something. This is good stuff. Okay, here we go. I'm going to jump into the reading. While the internal difficulties of our adolescent period were being ironed out, public acceptance of AA grew by leaps and bounds. For this, there were two principal reasons: the large numbers of recoveries and reunited homes. These made their impressions everywhere. Of alcoholics who came to AA and really tried, 50% got sober at once and remained that way. 25% sobered up after some relapses, and among the remainder, those who stayed on with AA showed improvement. Other thousands came to a few AA meetings and at first decided they didn't want the program, but great numbers of these, about 2 out of 3, began to return as time passed. Another reason for the wide acceptance of AA was the ministration of friends in medicine, religion, and the press, together with innumerable others who became our able and persistent advocates. Without such support, AA could have made only the slowest progress. Some of the recommendations of AA's early medical and religious friends will be found further on in this book. Alcoholics Anonymous is not a religious organization. Neither does AA take any particular medical point of view, though we cooperate widely with the men of medicine as well as with the men of religion. Alcohol being no respecter of persons, we are an accurate cross-section of America and in distant lands. The same democratic evening up process is now going on. By personal religious affiliations, we include Catholics, Protestants, Jews, Hindus, and a sprinkling of Muslims and Buddhists. More than 15% of us are women. At present, our membership is pyramiding at the rate of about 20% a year. So far, upon the total problem of several million actual and potential alcoholics in the world, we have made only a scratch. In all probability, we shall never be able to touch more than a fair fraction of the alcohol problem in all its ramifications. Upon therapy for the alcoholic himself, we surely have no monopoly. Yet it is our great hope that all those who have as yet found no answer may begin to find one in the pages of this book and will presently join us on the high road to a new freedom. Man, there's so much good stuff in there, and I look forward to jumping into this. I'm going to go back just a little bit and remind people that the second edition came out in 1955. So these numbers and these things that are put in here are as of 1955. So let's jump in here and have Nikki, if you wouldn't mind starting us off and giving us a little bit of your takeaway. What are some of the things that jumped out at you as we read through those pages?
Okay, well, thank you for that reading, and I'm just so excited about learning more about this book. And, a lot of the time when we go through this, David, not that we're all labeled anything, but our historian really of our table, I have a lot of experience that just kind of all relates to me, as I'm sure, as I know you both do. But the internal difficulties of our adolescent period, that happened in my own fellowship. What were the internal difficulties that were happening? There was governing going on. And as I admitted last time we were all together, I did a lot of that, and then there was lots of organization when we read in the paragraph before the least amount of possible organization. But, there's so much organization going on in the fellowship I crave. And then, of course, there was some promotion and not so much attraction. So these things I'm experiencing in real time, these internal difficulties in the fellowship I crave. But what I love, and, in my workbook, it's in here, and, Justin, how we use that in the 12 steps of our Big Book sponsorship workbook of alcoholics who came to AA and really tried. 50% got sober and remained that way. They remained recovered, and they really tried. Above really try, I have no half measures. People really tried back then. I'm not quite sure. And David's been around here a little longer than me. So I know that now it's really a watered down message. Then it says 25% sobered up after some relapses. Back then, you have a 75% chance of recovery. I don't know what's going on in 2023 because, when I was away, I just got home from Luxembourg, a month in Europe, and 3 of my fellows are dead. 3 of my fellows in a month are dead in my rooms. And so it's I don't know what's going on, but I love this where it says This was me. At first, they decided they didn't want the program. See, I came in here and thought, I literally I was like, this is free therapy. I used to pay $100 an hour. All I have to do is put a loonie, that's $1 in my country, or a toonie, that's a $2 bill in the basket. No, that's not all you have to do, Nikki. A price must be paid. You've got to turn everything over. This is really radical. My line out on didn't want the program is they needed to burn more of their human aids. They needed to be beyond human aid. That was me. And then it says about 2 out of 3 returned as time passed. Why? There is nowhere else to go for an addict like me. For a person who is suffering the disease of alcoholism, there is nowhere else to go. And I love it. It's like, again, this part repeats what we're going to read a little further, where it's like everybody's welcome, innumerable, together with innumerable others. That's too many to count. It talks about, about religion and medical. On page 28, it says, everybody's welcome again. Doesn't matter about religion. Page 133, go see a doctor, the properly appointed authority, says the book. And here, this is a spiritual malady. That's what I'm getting better here. I can't find that in church. I can't find that from a doctor. I can only find a spiritual solution here. So, as it says, we've only made a scratch. Why? Business is booming in 2023. I'm losing more people. We just came out of COVID. I'm losing more people to addiction and suicide than I ever did to a pandemic or a disease that's worldwide here. This is the disease of alcoholism. So I love in the final closing here on XXI, what it says here, Justin, David, it says, we'll find in the pages of this book. This book is what I need. And I want to join you guys on a high road to a new freedom. That new freedom is today. When my soul was getting eaten by the human race, I knew exactly what to do. My big book gives me instructions. I'm in the middle of this herd, and I was actually looking forward to tonight. So I knew I had to remain in the solution. Otherwise, I won't make it here at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's almost past my bedtime for this 50-year-old. I'll pass, Justin.
Thank you, Nikki. I appreciate all those insights and those thoughts as you develop that. And we'll get to a couple of questions here in a few minutes, but let's go over to David. David, why don't you tell us a little bit about some of the things that you pull out of that reading in this foreword to the second edition?
Yeah, absolutely. Justin, thank you guys for bearing with me. I'm at home now. I'm tucked away in my office here, and very grateful to be here with you guys. Nikki, thank you so much for sharing your experience, strength, and hope here. I always love hearing that. This is such a powerful part of the book, just like any part of the book. But when I first came, not a lot of people would read the forewords. They'd want to jump right into the doctor's opinion and go. I think you leave out a lot of the history of Alcoholics Anonymous if you do that. And, it tells me in the beginning that for this, there were 2 principal reasons. AA grew by leaps and bounds. 2 principal reasons. Let's look at the first one. Kind of reflect on. The first one is the large number of recoveries and reunited homes. This is a family illness. It always has been. Whether you drink alcohol in my home or not, they're affected by alcoholism. Whether they act out or not, they are affected by my acting out and the things that I did when I didn't drink alcohol. So that was one of the first principal reasons that the book talked about. These made their impressions everywhere. How could it not? That's very impressive. Reunited homes of alcoholics. Who ever heard of such a thing before AA? And like Miss Nikki shared here, of alcoholics who came to AA, and here's the key to that, really tried. A lot of times, and myself, whenever I first came here, I didn't really try. I wanted to hurry up and read this book and get the goodies out of it, but I didn't want to do a whole lot of work. Well, I learned pretty quick that it's not going to work that way. And the reason that this happened is in the days that this book was written, the program that's outlined in the book and the fellowship were exactly the same. There was no difference. It was the same. So you had a great chance in the meetings of getting the same thing that was in the book. It's not that way anymore. In the 1980s, a lot of treatment centers began to pop up. And a lot of people started flooding into Alcoholics Anonymous meetings. At that time, some of the old timers wasn't able to slow that down. Well, they brought in the only thing they knew, and that was the message that they had learned while they were in treatment and different things. That didn't quite go along with the program and what was going on at that time. So what ended up happening was the old timers got mad and they left because they felt like newcomers were running their meetings, but they were the ones who walked away. They were the ones who should have stood up and said, look, we've got a message here that works. This is how it is. We want you to stay, but if you can't do it this way. So I don't see that was the newcomers' fault in any way. I see that was the old timers. It's not 50% anymore. We'd be lucky if it's 10, at least in my town. And then 25% sobered up after some relapses. But the real miracle here is of the remainder of those who stayed on showed improvement. And I love how and I think Miss Nikki pointed this out. Other thousands came to a few meetings at first, decided they didn't want, keyword here, the program. I think the problem is we come in talking about my program or a program but it's the program of Alcoholics Anonymous that's outlined in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And the great promise, 2 out of 3 begin to return as time passed. So it says another reason. At the top, it said 2 principal reasons. We looked at the first one. Here's the second one. The wide acceptance of AA, the ministration of friends, medicine, and religion. See, they were never my friends before Alcoholics Anonymous. They were my enemies as far as self had told me. It wasn't until somebody took me through this book and they pointed out, David, these men are your friends. You need to learn to become friends. You don't have to agree with them. Page 85 says, be quick to see where religious people are right. It does not say be quick to see that they are right. It says be quick to see where they are right. So make use of what they offer, or I don't. It doesn't matter. But they're still my friend no matter what. And that was a very big revelation for me. And it talks about it, toward the end of that paragraph too, early AA's early medical and religious friends. There it is again. AA is not a religious organization. I'm grateful for that because I had no background in that. And I had a whole lot of resentment. And I think wounded people trying to heal wounded people, it just doesn't work out too well. And I find that, just about everywhere I've been with religion, I found it in AA as well. So, the Jews, the Protestants, the Hindus, the sprinkling of Muslims and Buddhists, I love that because all of that has applied to me in my recovery somehow. I respect all of that today. I love what she read up on therapy for the alcoholic himself there on XXI. We surely have no monopoly. If my problem is therapeutic, therapy is very good for me. It just is. I have nothing against therapy. I don't. But my problem is not therapeutic. It's spiritual. And I'm going to need something beyond therapy to heal me from that. And that's what I found in this solution. So the great hope is all that who have yet found no answer. I like the word yet. That means you're entitled to. That's the definition for that. It says that we may begin to find one. And she pointed this out very eloquently. The pages in the book, not the fellowship. I got to have it. I'm not down in the fellowship. I'm not talking bad. But if I want the answer, and I haven't found one yet, and I've tried everything else, then I might want to begin to look for one in the pages of the book. In our WhatsApp group, the one that we're all a part of, there's a few hundred members of that. That's exactly what it's called, The High Road to a New Freedom. And there's a lot of people that are in recovery from all addictions on there. This is a very powerful page when it's looked at and broken down. And, I just love what we do here. So thank you so much for allowing me to share on that, Justin. Nikki, thank you as well.
Thank you so much, David and Nikki, for those shares on that. I'm going to share a couple things from here. And before I jump into that, those in the listening audience may recognize that Ashley S., who has been with us for the first several recordings, is no longer with us. We're sad, but we're happy that she is following what her higher power is guiding her to do and going to the next thing that she's working on. She's made great contributions to this project and this roundtable, and we cheer her on as she moves on. We'll miss her though. Thank you, Nikki and David, for sharing your thoughts. I've got a couple things that jumped out at me as I was reading this, and then I'm going to ask you two a couple of questions here. For me, well, first of all, I previously thought that the two principal reasons were, one, the large numbers of recoveries, and two, the reunited homes. I didn't even add that, the ministration of friends. And that has made just that little eye opening of for me there has really solidified some things, because, I often say this, in the rooms when I'm in a room that I have never been in before, or when there's a lot of newcomers in the room. I say something to the effect of, some of my best friends are people that I have no idea what their last name is. And these are people that I've just come to love and respect and just fellowship with. It's an amazing thing. And I also, the line at the end, upon therapy for the alcoholic himself, we surely have no monopoly. I'm a believer that the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous work, and I believe that they can work for everybody, but I have learned that there are others who have recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body using other things, but those didn't work for me. And that next line that you mentioned there, David, for all of those who have as yet found no answer, all of the things I tried didn't provide the answer until I found this, until I was willing to do this and really tried, as we mentioned here. So those are a couple of the insights that I had from this, and I really appreciate you two helping me see those. I have a couple of questions for each of you. I'll start off with Nikki. Nikki, one of the things that jumped out at me is in here it talks about 75% of those who came in and really tried recovered. And it's been alluded to that, hey, if it's 10% around, we're getting lucky there. What are your thoughts on that, Nikki? Do you think it's because the program is watered down, or is it because people aren't really trying? And what's your experience on that?
Well, my experience, that's a great question, because that was me. I mean, and as David said, in his town, 10%, I don't even know if it's that high in my town. So, and I'm in a big city, downtown Toronto. There's 4 million people here. And my experience, strength, and hope is that they're not exactly what David said, my program. There's all these rules that people make up, and there's all these, you have to have 90 days sober before you sponsor somebody. Oh, well, Bill W. didn't have that experience. I don't think Dr. Bob did. So I'm wondering where they're getting this information, and then it's like, raise your hand if you need a sponsor. It says we make the approach. It says that on page 18, and it says that on page, I think 153, twice, we make the approach. So when you say these people in my city, I was a ball crying I'll never forget it. I was in the circle, my first meeting, and they pass around to read the steps. I had snot coming out of my nose. I couldn't see straight. I couldn't even open my mouth. I was hysterical. So how am I going to even, raise my hand if I need a sponsor? I need someone to make the approach. So those are some of the things I know that are happening. And then it's like, just keep coming back. And these slogans that these are helpful tools, but they did not relieve me of my seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. I needed an exact program. I Googled the word program, and program is a set of instructions. It's a set, like I Google a lot of these words, even this word that David talked about, this ministration of friends. This is people who assist you in difficult times. So I need this program, which is a set of related measures or activities with a particular long-term aim. It is also a coded instruction for the automatic performance of a task. It's instructions, a program is instructions to control the operation of a machine, to control the operation of my mind. So this has gotten so far from the message, and we just talked about page, see where religious people are right. Well, if you get to the original messages I see from some of these, the Buddha, Jesus, Moses, it's been watered down. I don't know what I'm getting from these messages. So how do we get to the source? Thank God we have the book that has not been changed. And I love David's history on this. I don't think the first 164 pages have ever been changed. And that's what the problem is. They're adding things into a perfect cake recipe, and you just won't get the cake.
Well, thank you, Nikki. Thank you for sharing that. And I love the analogies you made there. David, I'd love to get some personal experience, strength, and hope that you've had on these two principal reasons: the large number of recoveries and reunited homes and the ministration of friends. How have those reasons manifested themselves in your own recovery walk?
Well, a lot of people that I work with today, and including myself, whenever I first got here, was someone that was homeless. I mean, I didn't have a home. I didn't have a family. I didn't have anything, due to the lifestyle that I lived and the years that I'd spent in jail prior to coming in. And so, my home was given to me. It was definitely highly suggested that I come there to live, almost demanded for about 7 years. So the large number of recoveries and reunited homes happens as a result of the spiritual experience, not just getting sober. A lot of people that are just quote unquote sober, definitely have homes, but you don't see large number of recoveries. So when I see the word recoveries, that's talking about the family as well. And so I know that for us, a lot of us that carry the message here, we try to get the family involved right away, either with Al-Anon, S-Anon, or whatever that may be. We try to get them with someone who has been through the book and been through the process the way that we go, and that way the entire family. So the large number of recoveries and reunited homes, for me, it kind of falls under that. The friends, I had such a resentment against religion for so long, and I really didn't even know why, to be honest with you. If you brought up the word Jesus Christ, I can remember being in jail and the Gideons coming in and bringing in Bibles, and I remember throwing it in the corner and telling, if anybody picks that up, I'll kill them, and really meant that with all my heart. I can remember we tore the pages out of that little thing and rolled cigarettes and smoked the Bible, and it was awful, and I just hated these people. It took me a long time. I finally realized that they were my friends, because I've had so many men reach out and really help me and try to carry the message of spirituality with their God, which is Christ. Now, I had a big problem with that. I just did. And I can tell you that eased some as the years went on, but it really wasn't completely gone and me into full acceptance of that until I went through this work in 2019. There's a spiritual terms exercise on page 47 of this book that we do. And on page 47, it says, do not let any prejudice that you may have against spiritual terms deter you from honestly asking yourself what they mean to you. Now, anytime I'd ever went through this work or read this book, we just read on by that and kept going. Pretty good information, but it really didn't mean a whole lot. But what the guy who took me through this book had me to do was take a notebook, and I have templates of this now, of course, and he had me to draw a line right down the middle of the page in that spiral notebook. And on the left-hand side, he had me to put spiritual terms, and on the right-hand side, he had me to put what these really mean to me. Now, I was to come at this prayerfully, because by now, I've learned to pray some anyway. I haven't learned to listen a whole lot, but I've learned to pray. And so what I did was I came at this prayerfully. Well, of course, some of the terms that come up was obviously Jesus Christ, the Holy Spirit, Son of God, favorite son, vision of Christ. I mean, the list could go on and on. I could talk about it all night. Ceremony, child prayer. Prayer is a spiritual term. Meditation. The list goes on and on. So I wrote all these things down according to that exercise that's laid out in that part of the book. And then I prayerfully asked myself what these meant to me. And I'm just going to maybe talk about one or two. I don't want to take up a whole lot of time here. But the word Christ, why would that bother me so much? I mean, these guys are obviously my friends now, but I can't completely accept their message. And I feel like it's because, I'm still dirty. I'm still guilty. I'm still this, even though I've been cleansed and reborn in the third step and all this stuff. But anyway, what came to me, what that really meant to me was punishment and death. And what I'd heard through the message through the years is that had happened because of me and people like me. And I just couldn't accept that. I just could not accept it. But what that exercise done for me was it showed me that really I didn't have a problem with Christ, and I didn't know this. What I had a problem with was the way that they were presenting that to me. That changed everything, everything. And so what I'd heard in the program and through this book for all those years is that I get to choose my conception now, not only of God, but the message that I want to hear from people like that. So I no longer look at that the same. And when that happened, my friendship with those people blossomed and flowered because there was no more resentment. There was no more fear. There was no more guilt. There was no more shame. All of a sudden, the things that I'd read about Christ, and I've read a lot about the Buddha, and I've read a lot about the Hinduism. I love that stuff. I just love it. I really hear nothing different. The message, you can go around all the stories and get into all of the little nuggets and all this stuff, but at the end, it's all about love. It's all about love. And that's what it is here. And my friendship has flowered with those men ever since. And I've told them, I've sat across from my pastor and I tell him, you know what, I don't agree with you, what you said there. And he said, I don't either. And we eat lunch and shake hands and give each other a hug. And he goes, does his thing. And I come to Alcoholics Anonymous and carry the message. So I've got a lot of friends today that are religious friends, and I love them very much. So thank you for letting me share that.
Thank you, David, for sharing that experience. That's pretty profound. I appreciate that. All right. Before we go into final readings, I'd like to get a 1-minute wrap up from each of you. Nikki, just take 1 minute and share an insight that you gained from anybody's sharing here that you'd like to just put out there for us to hear.
Well, my brains are always exploding all over the place every time that, we sit at this table. And, what I've just really learned is right here when David took us to page 47. It's like my promise says, after I do what David said here, the spiritual terms, what does this mean to me? What does this program? Didn't want the program, alcohol being no respecter of all this. Afterwards, I find myself accepting many things which then seemed entirely out of reach. See, this is the promise. I mean, after I do this, when I go through this book line by line, when I sit down with you guys and keep an open mind, get honest and willing, I find that I'm accepting many things which seemed entirely out of reach to me. So this is again what we just called miracles. It's just, I'm just so excited. I'm on fire, and I thought I was ready for bed.
Thank you so much, Nikki. David, what's a takeaway for you from our reading and our discussion today?
Well, God, there are so many. The part of the book that you read, I think, has been left out of so many studies and so many people that take others through the book. I really would encourage anybody that is going through the Big Book or that is thinking about going through it, don't miss the forewords. There are so much good stuff in there. That high road to a new freedom, that is definitely real. And what Miss Nikki talked about that I had brought up on page 47, just remember at that point in the book, we are really putting this cornerstone in place in our arch. And it is so important that those things be in place. And remember, that's just a willingness. That's just a willingness to believe. And I just love what you both had to say about the reading today. And I'm very grateful to be here and be a part of this podcast. And I'm definitely committed to see it all the way through. So thank you guys for working with me on the days and the times and the riding home from Texas and all that stuff. I really, really appreciate it. So that's it for me, Justin. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Nikki. And I'm just going to do a real quick 1-minute wrap up what I got out of that. And it's also where we were taken to page 47. That concept, that practice of listing out prejudices that I have had against any spiritual terms, that practice that I did, and I was 5 years sober when I did that for the first time, just revolutionized everything that I understood about God, about my relationship with God, and the filter through which I saw God at that point. I still have a filter there. I'm never going to have that off in mortality, I don't think. But man, the clarity that comes through that is my higher power is so much clearer now because of that practice. So thank you for bringing me to that there on page 47. We're going to close up here. Thank you, Nikki. Thank you, David, for your for your service as we go through the big book here. And thank you all for joining with us. And to learn more about RICO 12 and what we're doing and how you can support these projects, go to RICO12.com. To learn more about any of the other projects that David or Nikki discussed, please check out the links in the show notes of the podcast, and we'll get into the work and experience the miracles of recovery. Join us in this fellowship of the Spirit. And I'm going to read the last couple of lines in our reading today. Begin to find one in the pages of this book. Find an answer in the pages of this book, and will presently join us on the high road to a new freedom. Come join with us on that high road to a new freedom, everybody. We're happy to have you here. Work it. You are worth it.